So I'm Ralph Bates from Clearview Intelligence, and really I need to say a big thank you to the DFT who've just teed me up perfectly all morning to continue talking about some of the amazing things that we can do with transport data, and specifically talking about how we can use integrated transport data to save. So just to sort of get your minds in the right space, we want to have a look at, being really open-minded to art of the possible. We want to sort of change what we're thinking from what is to what if. So keep that open mindset as we work through this, and we'll just have a look at some of the things that we can do with data right now. So integrated transport data, the DFT have told us amazing things this morning about why we need to be doing it and some of the challenges and some of the hurdles. And we're not going to get hung up on any of those things. We're just simply going to focus on kind of what happens if we start to collaborate and if we start to work together. Now, before I get into that, building this presentation, I was using AI to kind of generate some images and kind of give us a bit of visual cue as to kind of what we're looking at. And actually what that taught me, ironically, is actually that we need to have good inputs to get the output that we actually desire. If we just go show me an image of what a city looks like, we get the congested, miserable looking kind of city over there. And if we start adding a few more cues, if we start prompting it and saying, here's another bit of input, here's another thing that we want. If we want cycling and pedestrians to come first, if we want mobility as a transport, mass rapid transport, if we want an extra tree, then we'll get that as an output and we can start using that to make informed decisions. I didn't get it quite right. We still got a moody looking cloud there, but it just kind of sets the theme for we need to have these inputs to get what we want as an output. So bringing data together, as we've talked about this morning, we don't want to just bring data for the sake of bringing data together. We don't want to be double tapping on data storage. We want to make sure that the data that does exist within our local authorities or within our strategic road networks is called upon as and when we need it to achieve certain outcomes. So we're not saying that we need to bring it all together for the fun of it. We're doing this for a purpose. So what if we started using some of these data silos and some of these data inputs to actually try and save time on our travel? Now, some of the people in this room are way more qualified than I am to talk about some of these amazing things. And what's been fantastic over the last 2 years is the discussion that ITMF, the funding pot that was threatened to come about, actually inspired some amazing conversations. Okay, it inspired everyone to start talking to each other, everyone to start collaborating, everyone to start talking between neighboring authorities, different companies, different technology companies, and some of the things that we can achieve if we work together. So we might be looking at active travel data, we might be looking at vehicle data, we might be looking at weather information or road condition information to make decisions on how we're going to prioritize signal movements. It might be that actually we're looking much further afield and we're actually looking at what impact does the strategic road network have on our network that's outside of our control, but we need to manage it and we need to have foresight of when those things are happening. So these data sets exist. We can bring this data together very easily, and those conversations that we're having around the ITMF funding actually have turned into reality in certain places. So we're now working with local authorities that are using these data inputs to make more informed decisions about how signals work, how we move vehicles around our towns and our cities. I'm going to move on from this because this is a fairly broad one that a lot of people in this room know a lot about. But what if we started really simply? And actually, what if we use some of the data that we've got available to us, which is typically in real time now, some of this data that's coming in, to actually save energy? Not sure how well that image is coming across here in this room, but ultimately, we're now using real-time traffic data to make decisions about whether we're dimming our lighting network, so our road network. Now, I'm talking about data today, so I'm not going to go off on a big tangent about our active road studs and how amazing they are and the fact that we're changing the British standards on street lighting design to work in a more low carbon way. We're talking about how can we use the infrastructure that we've already got today that has got a long life cycle left in it in a much better way, in a much more informed way. So if we can see that the traffic isn't using a particular road, why are we lighting it? Why are we doing that? Why are we spending money lighting those roads that no one's using? But if those roads do start to be used, we want to make sure that we're re-illuminating them, making them safe for drivers to use those roads, and making sure that we're doing that with informed data that's coming in. So it could be flow data from vehicles, it could be floating vehicle data that we're using to understand congestion, delays, and hotspots on our network. So rather than just saying we're just going to turn all the lights off or we're going to dim them to a certain level, we can now use traffic adaptive lighting to make sure that our lighting network is appropriate for the roads and the usage that we're seeing on them. Mr. Dave Denner at the Welsh Government has implemented this on his network, so please do seek him out and find him later on to talk about how this is working in his environment. And then what if we started using some of these data inputs to actually save lives? Now, each of these different data silos probably exist within the local authority. We've heard a lot this morning already about where these sit and some of the challenges involved in working together and how we bring this together. But if we can just dip in and take feeds from some of these systems and join them together to make more informed decisions, we can do some amazing things. So we don't want sensors absolutely everywhere on our network. We don't want to have maintainable assets absolutely everywhere on our network. We may have them in strategic locations of high importance. It might be, for example, that we've got certain ingress and egress points on our network that are sort of system critical when it comes to network management. So we may have sensors in those locations. We may have sensors in certain other locations to do other jobs, such as road condition monitoring, road temperature monitoring for gritting patterns. Why aren't we using that to make informed decisions on incident response? We can do. It's very easy to bring that together. So if we want to understand that if there's black ice somewhere or there's standing water and we're seeing congestion in parts of the network that we don't typically see congestion in, we can make an informed decision about how to respond to that incident on the network. We don't want to send people, we don't want to send humans into dangerous places on our network. We want to be able to go there, make informed decisions about what's happening. Flirted around with the idea of drone in a box. So actually, rather than having to send someone out to understand what's happening there, if we've got all of these cues coming in, if we can see that actually we've hit these certain metrics, we might want to dispatch a drone to actually go out and have a look. So there's lots we can do there about trying to inform, trying to learn, trying to make sure that we've got the appropriate response on certain parts of the network. We're also starting to talk about virtual VMS. So actually now we can have a sort of geofence location on the network and a dangerous hotspot on the network. If we see any of these metrics coming in, maybe we've got some standing water or some black ice, we can actually now push messages to connected vehicles to say, warning, black ice ahead on this particular junction. We've now got the ability to have this kind of virtual infrastructure that we need to make more use of. And all of these different data metrics exist within local authorities. They're there to be exploited. And from anyone who knows me, probably sees that I get quite excited by this sort of thing. We can delve into the detail about what we can actually achieve with the data that already exists. We don't need the astronomical amounts of data that's coming from connected vehicles. Yes, that has a use, and yes, we can make some value of that. But actually, the data that we're talking about here is tiny amounts of data. And it's tiny amounts of data that's already being used, it's already being paid for. We just need to exploit it. We don't need to spend more money to implement some of these amazing things. This can be done now. So then, what if we work together just that little bit more? We do a lot of work with local authorities. I spend a lot of my time running data workshops with local authorities to understand what do you have access to? What can we make better use of with some of the use cases that we've gone through here? But we also know that within the strategic road network and the sort of, the entire network in the UK as a whole, there's a huge amount of data that could flow both directions. Whether that's local authorities providing data back to the DFT in a slightly more granular way, or it could be that the DFT is pushing data back out to local authorities in a slightly more granular way, so they can also see what's happening on their networks. We've recently been asked by a client to install a system to capture some data on a certain part of the network, and it was about 50 meters away from a DFT monitoring site. Potentially, just a simple conversation, we can start making sure that data flows both ways and that we're working together and working smarter. Likewise, on the Welsh Government network, we're now starting to share this data with the local authorities in Wales, making sure that local authority data is coming back into that central system and it's flowing both ways. We're not double tapping, we're not double storing the data. It's there just to be called upon as and when it's needed to make informed decisions on our network. So really, it's about collaboration, and that's why we find the TTF event in particular absolutely fantastic. It just gets everyone talking, and some of the conversations that we've already had today have been really inspired. There's some fantastic things going on in various local authorities around the UK. All we need to do is start celebrating those use cases, celebrating how easy it is to actually achieve some of these results that we've talked about today, and making sure that we continue those innovative conversations, and I'm sure they'll continue for the next sort of day and a half. So Really, the point I'm trying to make here is that we can do some of these things. We can make our roads safer, greener, and smarter with the data that we've already got today. We just need to think differently. We need to talk to each other, and we need to make sure that that data flows in multiple directions. So thank you for me to listen to me waffling on today. Hopefully that's been of interest, and hopefully that inspires some more conversations throughout the course of the day. Thank you very much.